szabályokhoz, amelyek közvetlenül Magyarországhoz kötődnek. Az adatkormányzási rendelet 2023. szeptember 24 óta már alkalmazandó, de számos végrehajtási szabályra még most is várunk. Ettől függetlenül, mint az korábban előadók is kiemelték, Magyarország rendkívül elsők között volt ebben, hogy végrehajtási szabályokat alkosson erre. Emiatt már 2024. január 1-től az infotörvénybe bekerült, hogy a Nemzeti Adatvédelmi és Információszabadság Hatóság lesz a felügyeleti hatóság és a nyilvántartó hatóság az adatközvetítő szolgáltatók és adataltruista szervezetek tekintetében Magyarországon. Ezen felül a nemzeti adatvagyon hasznosításáról szóló törvény, a korábbi adatvagyon törvényt felülírva 2024. április 1-től új szabályokat állapított meg az első felére az adatkormányzási rendeletnek a közadatok hasznosítására, és ehhez kapcsolódóan a NAVI működésére. Még mindig szükség van többek között két rendeletre, amely az infotörvényben benne van, hogy majd meg kell hozni. Egyrészt egy kormányrendelet arról, hogy az EU bizottságnak milyen formában kell majd a felügyeleti hatóságnak megküldeni az értesítéseket a nyilvántartásba vételekről, illetve a nyilvántartás bármilyen módosulásáról. A másik pedig, hogy milyen díjat kell fizetni a nyilvántartásba vételért. Ennek hiányában ugye jelenleg még ingyenes az eljárás. A közszféra adatainak további felhasználásáról csak nagyon röviden említeném. Ugye nagy mennyiségű harmadik fél jogai által védett adatokról van szó, amelyek nem közadatok, tehát nem nyilvánosan bárki számára hozzáférhetőek, személyes adatokat, üzleti titkokat, szellemi tulajdonjogot tartalmaznak. Viszont értékesek és megfelelő védelem, megfelelő intézkedések mellett, amely biztosítja, hogy az alapjogokat nem sérti a felhasználás, ezeknek a felhasználása rendkívül nagy hozzáadott értéket képviselhet. Már korábban is szó volt az előző előadásban arról, hogy az adatkormányzási rendelet nem teszi kötelezővé, és nem is engedi közvetlenül meg bármely adatbázis felhasználását, csak egy keretrendszert biztosít, a tagállami jogalkotókra vár, hogy meghatározza, mely adatbázisokat nyitja meg ezen célból. És szintén a tagállami jogszabályoknak kell a garanciákat ezzel kapcsolatban meghatároznia, hogy biztosítsa azt, hogy ezen adatokkal nem élnek vissza. Amikor majd ezen jogszabályok alapján valaki hozzáfér a közadatokhoz, akkor egy keretrendszer biztosít mind az adatkormányzási rendelet, mind a 2023 évi 101-es törvény az adatvagyon felhasználásával kapcsolatban. Ugye, következőleg arról beszélnék, kik is Magyarországon az adatkormányzási rendelet szereplői, akik a végrehajtásban valamilyen fontos szerepet játszanak. Ugye, egyrészt röviden csak felvillantanám, hogy az egyablakos információs pont célja, hogy megkönnyítse a felhasználókat, akik majd adatokat szeretnének kérni, hogy tudják, hogy milyen adatbázisokhoz férhetnek hozzá, azokban milyen adatok vannak, azoknak mi a metaadata, illetve milyen feltételek mellett lehet ezekhez hozzáférni, tehát egy információs adatbázist működtet, illetve ezen felül meghatároz még egy illetékes szerv nevű szereplőt, ami nem keverendő az illetékes hatósággal, amely közvetítő szerepet játszik a közszférabeli szervezetek és az adatfelhasználók között, tehát azok között, akiknél van az adat, és akik azt szeretnék felhasználni. Ugye ez két irányú, egyrészt kommunikációs célokat is szolgál, másrészt azért a közszférabeli szervezeteknek nehézségbe ütközhet adott esetben, hogy megfelelő kompatibilis módon tudjanak egy adatcsomagot összeállítani, és ebben is segítségre van szükségük, így ez is feladata az illetékes szervnek. Ugye, mint mondtam, Magyarországon az illetékes szerv és az egyablakos információs pont feladatait is a Nemzeti Adatvagyon Ügynökség látja el 2024. április 1 óta, És ehhez még a magyar szabályozás egy úgynevezett kulcsszolgáltatót is hozzávett, amely azt biztosítja, hogy a technikai hátteret ad arra, hogy hogyan lehet az adatokat megfelelően védeni. Tehát amikor az adatszolgáltatás történik, akkor ne azonosítható adatok legyenek, és a kulcsok ehhez egy olyan harmadik félnél legyenek, akinél viszont az adatok nincsenek. Mint szintén említettem már, a felügyeleti hatóság Magyarországon a Nemzeti Adatvédelmi és Információszabadság Hatóság, és ezen belül 2024-ben újonnan létrejött általán vezetett osztály, az Európai Uniós Digitális adatstratégia osztály. Így, mivel minden szentnek maga felé hagyjuk a keze, át is térnék az osztálynak a feladataira. Mit is csinálunk mi? Ugye egyrészt az adatközvetítő szolgáltatók és adatalkotó szervezetek nyilvántartásba vételét és felügyeletét kell, hogy ellássuk, illetve megfelelőség bizonyítvány kiállítására irányuló eljárást is kell tudni lefolytatni az adatkormányzási rendelet alapján. Ezen kívül részt veszünk az Európai Adatinnovációs Testület plenáris ülésein, valamint annak munkacsoporti ülésein. Jelenleg ugye egy munkacsoportja van, amely a felügyeleti hatóságokból áll. Ezen felül az osztály feladata még az előbb is említett EU-s digitális csomag alapján az adatvédelmi hatóság feladataihoz sorolt egyéb új feladatok ellátása. Ugye ez az adatrendelet, az interoperábilis Európáról szóló rendelet, az EMI rendelet, számos rendelet meghatároz plusz feladatokat kifejezetten az adatvédelmi hatóságok részére, és ezekben történő részvétel, például a tesztkörnyezetekben, úgynevezett sandboxokban részvétel is majd az új osztálynak a feladatköre lesz. Ezen kívül klasszikus GDPR szerinti felügyeleti jogkörünk is van, mivel nagyon szorosan kapcsolódik az adatkormányzási részhez az új technológiákkal történő adatkezelés, ezért mindenfajta ilyen EMI-vel és hasonló új technológiával történő adatkezelés vizsgálatát is ez az új osztály végzi. Tekintettel arra, hogy ez szorosan összefügg azokkal az EU-s jogszabályokkal, amiket egyébként mi alkalmazunk, és amiknek az ismerete szükséges a GDPR ismeretén felül ezen új típusú adatkezelésekkel kapcsolatban. És el is jutottunk az infotörvény szerinti új eljárásokhoz, mivel az Nemzeti Adatvédelmi és Információszabadság Hatóság feladatait és eljárásait az infotörvény határozza meg, ezért ide kerültek az adatkormányzási rendelet szerinti új feladatok, illetve azoknak az eljárásai is. Először is van egy adatközvetítő szolgáltatók bejelentésének menete. Ez egy e-papíros elektronikus nyomtatványon történik, és az adatkormányzási rendelet 11 cikkében megjelölt információk megadása szükséges ehhez. Ezt a hatóság összeveti a cégjegyzék adataival, illetve azzal a weboldallal, amit kötelezően meg kell jelölni ebben a bejelentésben, és igazából ez egy formai ellenőrzés, az adatkormányzási rendelet alapján itt nem érdemi megfelelést kell vizsgálni, hanem ezen formai követelményeknek megfelelést. Amennyiben mégis valamilyen okból nem felelne meg a formai követelményeknek a bejelentés, akkor egy alkalommal hiánypótlási eljárásban hívja fel a hatóság, hogy ezt pótolja a bejelentő, és amint a hiánytalanul megvan minden információ, onnantól kezdve 7 napon belül kell határozatban dönteni a nyilvántartásba vételről. Ez nem jelenti önmagában a megfelelőség igazolását, ahhoz külön eljárásban kell egy megfelelőségi bizonyítványt kérni. Ezen kívül a hatóság köteles minden nyilvántartásba vételt, vagy annak bármilyen módosulását a bizottságnak bejelenteni. Ugye, mint említettem, jelenleg még nincs erre külön kormányhatározat, hogy hogyan, ezért jelenleg az egyetlen adatközvetítő szolgáltatót, amit eddig bejegyeztünk, e-mailen jelentettük be a bizottság részére, de így is sikerült, és ott van a bizottság honlapján, és ha jól emlékszem, talán Magyarország volt az EU-ban a harmadik, akinél ilyen bejegyzésre került. Mint említettem, van egy külön eljárás a megfelelés igazolására. Az elektronikus úton benyújtott kérelemre hatósági bizonyítványt állít ki a hatóság, ebben viszont igazolni kell tényleg az adatkormányzási rendelet 11 és 12 cikkének megfelelést, és ez egy rendes hatósági eljárás, amiben mindenféle iratokat kérhet még a hatóság azon felül, amit benyújtanak, ahhoz, hogy ténylegesen meggyőződjön arról, hogy a jogi megfelelés megtörtént. Akkor, amikor ezt sikerült bizonyítania, akkor határozatban tudja a hatósági bizonyítványt kiállítani a hatóság, és innentől lehet az Unióban elismert adatközvetítő szolgáltató címet és a bizottság által meghatározott logót használni az adatközvetítő szolgáltatónak. Az eljárási határidő ez esetben 150 nap, ami ugye jóval hosszabb, mint a 7 napos bejegyzési határidő, amely csak formai vizsgálatot enged. Az adatartóista szervezetek nyilvántartásba vétele nagyon hasonlít, szintén elektronikusan kérhető. Ebben, mint már korábban előadásban is elhangzott, annyi különbség van, hogy nem kötelező a működéshez a nyilvántartásba vétel. Viszont a bejegyzés része a megfelelőség igazolása is, és a bejegyzéssel viselheti az Unióban elismert adattartóista szervezet címet, amely igazából az előnye ennek a bejegyzésnek a szervezet szemszögéből. Ugye adatvédelmi hatósági szemszögből még annyi jegyeznék meg ehhez, hogy kérdés, hogy mondjuk a GDPR 25 cikk szerinti beépített és alapértelmezett adatvédelem elvének mennyiben felel meg, hogyha valaki úgy végzi ezt a tevékenységet, hogy nem igazolja az adatkormányzási rendeletnek történő megfelelését. De ezt majd akkor tudjuk vizsgálni, ha tényleg lesz ilyen adataltruista szolgáltató Magyarországon. Ennek a nyilvántartásba vételi eljárására 84 napos a határidő, ezt nem mi találtuk ki, ez az adatkormányzási rendeletben álmodta meg valaki erre, sosem tudjuk meg miért pont 84 nap. Ehhez kapcsolódik a már bejegyzett adatközvetítő szolgáltatók és adattartóista szervezetek felügyelete, ebben szintén 150 napos határidejű hatósági eljárás lehetséges, akár az érintettek kérelmére, akár hivatalból. Meg nem felelés esetén az adatkormányzási rendeletben meghatározott jogkövetkezményeken kívül, ami például a törlés a nyilvántartásból, vagy felfüggesztés, ezen felül bírságot lehet kiszabni 100 000 forinttól 50 millió forintig. Fontos, hogy itt csak az adatkormányzási rendelet szerinti megfelelést nézi a hatóság ebben az eljárásban, de előfordulhat, hogy a GDPR megsértése is felmerül, akkor arra külön eljárást kell indítani, és akkor a GDPR szerinti jogkövetkezményeket alkalmazhatja a hatóság, ettől függetlenül. Ja, szintén elhangzott már a korábbi előadásban, hogy viszonylag kevés számú adatközvetítő szolgáltató és összesen egy adataltista szervezet van jelenleg. Ez valószínűleg jelentősen alulmarad attól, ami az elvárt szint, és ezért jelenleg is zajlik az adatkormányzási rendelet felülvizsgálata, ami többek között nyilvános konzultáció útján és az Európai Adatinnovációs Testülettel egyeztetés útján megpróbálja azokat a feltételeket megtalálni, amelyekkel ez sokkal működőképesebb lehet, és sokkal több szervezet érzi majd úgy, hogy ez jó neki, hogyha az adatkormányzási rendelet hatálya alá kerül. Végezetül szeretném nagyon röviden felvillantani az Európai Adatinnovációs Testület működését, felépítését, miről is van szó. Ugye ennek a plenárisnak a tagjai az illetékes hatóságok, az Európai Adatvédelmi Biztos, a bizottság, az EU Kiberbiztonsági Ügynöksége, az uniós KKV megbízott, illetve még másokat is meghívhatnak adott esetben. A testület plenáris ülésén kívül egy darab munkacsoportja van, amely a felügyeleti hatóságokból áll és a bizottságból. Ezen felül van egy előkészítő shadow munkacsoportja is, amely előkészíti ezen fő munkacsoport ülését, amelyet a felügyeleti hatóságok külön maguknak hoztak létre, mivel úgy érezték, hogy nagyobb óraszám szükséges ahhoz, hogy egyeztessék azon témákat, amik szükségesek. Többek között az adatkormányzási rendelet értelmezési kérdéseit. Nagyon röviden, hogy is zajlik egy ilyen értelmezési kérdés megvitatása. Az első shadow a munkacsoporti ülésen kiválasztják a hatóságok szavazással azt, hogy mely kérdések, mely értelmezési, fogalmi kérdéseket tisztázzanak legközelebb, és erre önkéntesek kidolgoznak egy szöveget. Ezt a levezető elnök mindenkinek körbeküldi, az felügyeleti hatóságok erre írásban tudnak reagálni, és a második shadow munkacsoporti ülésen egyeztetik és véglegesítik ezen megjegyzéseket, és megküldik a bizottságnak. Ezután jön a hivatalos munkacsoporti ülés, amin a bizottsággal közösen is megvitatják ezt, és általában ilyenkor már véglegesítésre szokott kerülni, de még ezután megküldik minden hatóságnak és a bizottságnak, ha még valakinek lenne valamilyen megjegyzése, és ezt követően egy ilyen kérdésfelelek listában rögzítése kerül a levezető elnök által ez. Szó volt arról, hogy ez esetlegesen mikor kerül publikálásra, de konkrét döntés még erről nem született, arra is tekintettel, hogy most felülvizsgálat alatt van az adatkormányzási rendelet, így lehet, hogy egyes fogalmak egészen meg fognak változni. Valószínűleg attól is függ, hogy ebből mennyi és mikor kerül majd nyilvánosságra. Köszönöm szépen a figyelmet!
És köszönöm szépen Vas Norbert osztályvezető úrnak az előadást, és hogy megint be tudtunk egy kicsit tekinteni a kulisszák mögé. Az Európai Adatinnovációs Testületben akkor 2 ország delegáltjai tudnak a mai konferenciába bekapcsolódni. Itt a színfalak mögött több csatornán megy a kommunikáció, van itt streaming, magyar, angol nyelvű csatorna, és van egy Teams. A Teams időnként önállósítja magát, ilyenkor látják, hogy megjelenik a kivetítőn is valamilyen felugró ablak. A Teams vonalban itt van Leo Quentin, a francia ARCEP, elektronikus kommunikációs szabályozási hatóság adatszolgáltatási, felhő és adatszolgáltatási osztályvezetője, akivel, ha minden igaz, akkor sikerül egy online bejelentkezést összekapcsolni. Gerencsér Balázs kollégám, ha minden igaz, már a kivetítőre ki is tette. Mivel ez a rész magyarul szinkron tolmácsolt, akkor kedves Leo, magyarul vezettelek fel, átadom a szót, felkérünk előadásod megtartására.
I guess it's my turn. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we are hearing you. Thank you.
Perfect. And I will try to present in my turn. Perfect. In the meantime, many thanks for the invitation and all my apologies for not being able to join you in Hungary. I would have gladly liked to come to Budapest, but unfortunately, so you should be able to see my screen right now. related affairs. For example, protection of internet neutrality 2015, and later on last year on data integration services as competitive authority for the DGA, but also on cloud services. We are an independent administrative authority, which means that we are only under the control of the French Parliament and the judge, but independent from the government. And that independence results from European text, especially telecom-related ones. But it means that we can act independently. Our missions, as I said, range from core missions related to telecom regulation, such as mobile coverage or fiber coverage, but we've been given new missions along the years, and Data Governance Act and Data Act are one of the key strategic issues that are focused on, and we want to keep doing what we've been doing for many years as part of telecom regulation, that is promoting openness of market, fostering innovation, and encouraging better competition on different markets. I will first focus on what we are doing on digital ecosystems, and there are two key pillars on our work so far during these topics. The first one, and which will be the one I will focus on today, is data economy and innovation, and especially what we've been doing regard to the Data Governance Act, where we want to encourage the emergence of players that are data intermediaries, the one that were mentioned by the previous speakers, but more broadly, try and develop data economy that is economy of data, but also economy by data, and innovation. We've been trying to support the ecosystem from competition and allow new players in an emerging market to emerge and maintain constructive dialogue with the ecosystem by to try and foster the emergence of these new players. It was mentioned by Norbert, but I will come back to that. So far, we have received 8 data intermediaries notifications in France, among the 15 in total in the European Union, and in various sectors ranging from agriculture to real estate and airport management services. We are also acting a lot on cloud services with the focus of promoting freedom of choice for the users of these services. And this is very important for data flow, because we do not want the data to be kept and locked in within a particular provider, and that would be very useful for data flow to have better freedom of choice for cloud services. So it was mentioned many times, but the Data Governance Act originates from the European Strategy for Data from June 2020, and it seeks to increase trust in data sharing and also strengthen the mechanism to increase data availability, for example, in Chapter 2, and overcome technical obstacles to the reuse of data. What may be interesting as a comparison between Hungary and France is that Chapter 3 related to data integration services and Chapter 4 related to data altruism are enforced by 2 different competent authorities, as the focus of the government on data integration was more about the economical value of data and the way data integration services work are virtually pipes or simply transmission networks between of data between data users and data holders, while Chapter 4 related to data altruism has been the competent authority that has been designated share their data, monetize it for a particular use case. I will try and give you many examples later on. And data users that want to create new services, improve their services, thanks to the shared data. And the banks of the day, DGA, the Data Governance Act, was to say that in order to improve and facilitate data sharing and improve the flow of data in the data union, there was a need for new type of players that are these data integration services providers that are both trustworthy and neutral in the data to share data with the aim of establishing these commercial relationships between data owners and data users. And these two pillars, trust and neutrality, are key to the regulation scheme that we are trying to enforce and that we are enforcing with the DGA. To be also quite quick and focus on the examples, and it's been reminded by Robert, there are two main procedures that need to be followed by, that need or can be followed by data intermediaries. But the first one is a notification procedure. It's quite formal, it's quite simple, but any entity that falls within the definition of the data integration services, that ensures and creates commercial relationships for data sharing, needs to notify its activity. And it's quite important to let the world know that such entities exist, and for us, but also for the market, to try and regulate it as best as we can, but also to ensure that there is trust in these players. But another layer of trust can be added through the naming procedures. As the DGA states, list of 15 criteria and obligations that data integration service providers need to fulfill. And these range from security of data to good practices related to consent management and so on, to ensuring that these entities remain neutral towards the data. And the main criteria on that is that they cannot use the data that they intermediate for their own benefit. And we are, as ourselves, in charge of all these procedures. The first one, the notification, as I said, is quite simple. The labeling one is much more complex and requires an in-depth assessment of the practices of the data integration service providers, so that we can see if they are trustworthy or not. To give you a snapshot of what we are, the state today for this market right now. The take-up has been quite difficult, to be fair, and we have seen in the 2 years, 1.5 years, since the DGA started being enforced, few interest for data integration and for the creation of data integration services providers. Nevertheless, it's quite increasing, and since the past 6 months, there has been, I think, 4 or 5 new notifications in the EU. But what's quite interesting is that there is an increasing of interest for such services, and these can range in a variety of sectors. As I mentioned before, we have data intermediaries in agriculture, but also in real estate. We have an example of a data marketplace for real estate data, for airport management, which is very industrial, related to the data that planes share, where they land and how an airport can be managed. Also in training and education, which will be much more related to personal data and the way that these personal data can be managed and shared specifically to the person that we need, especially in the training and education sector. Recently, we had new what's quite interesting, and the big key question that everyone is asking, especially in the perspective of the evaluation of the DGA 2025, because the text will be evaluated by the European Commission this year, is about the viability of the business models of these data intermediaries, because, as I said before, they are meant to be neutral and especially neutral towards the data, which means that they cannot develop other services than pure data intermediation or things that facilitate data intermediation, such as anonymization, conversion, and so on. And this activity can prove to be this restriction of activity can prove to be limiting to the business models of these actors, and it's quite hard for the market. It might be hard for the market to develop because of the constraints of the DGA, and maybe there could be a balance. There could be a need for a better balance to be found between regulation and allowing data intermediaries to have viable business models in order for data economy to keep growing. Norbert has talked quite a lot about the European Data Innovation Board, but it's also very interesting to see and to have this forum to get better coordination among competent authorities and with other stakeholders, such as ENISA for cybersecurity or standardization entities. Sorry, skip that. And there was another point I wanted to mention is the regulation of cloud services, because another key pillar of the European Data Strategy, the Data Act, includes measures to increase competition in the European cloud market, and has been partially anticipated in France. And the strategy pointed back in 2020 pointed to the risk of dependency to non-European Union cloud providers. The market is largely dominated by three players that are Amazon, Microsoft, and Google. And that means there is a high risk of dependency to such players. The market is highly concentrated on these players, and there exists lock-in effects, meaning that customers have trouble to change, switch cloud providers, but also simply to move their data. And in order to foster the data economy and allow better movement of data, the Data Act also includes measures to allow cloud users to switch and to develop multi-cloud architectures. And this is done by removing some obstacles to data flow and cloud switching being contractual, commercial, because the cloud service providers tend to charge for data to be moved between different providers, and technical portability of data and digital assets and interoperability to allow better flow between different services. We've been working since
Mr. Lequentin. Unfortunately, your presentation didn't appear at our screen. However, your lecture was very valuable for the whole conference, I think. So we would like to ask you to send this PPT file to us, and we will dismiss. Thank you very much for this very honorable participation at the conference and for your presentation. And we look forward to seeing you in person in Budapest next time. And I wish all the best to you, and thank you for your contribution.
Well, thank you for the invitation. Already.
Okay, thank you, Leo. Kedves hölgyeim és uraim, még egy előadásunk maradt. Időnként 3-4 percekkel összegyűjtöttünk 20 perc késést, ezt majd igyekszünk Gáborna igazgató úrtól egy kicsit elcsalni, hogyha erre volna megkérhetlek, illetőleg a szünetből is egy kicsit elcsípni, hogy azért a második angol nyelven tartott részre is legyen kellő idő. Igazgató úr, megkérlek akkor az utolsó előadás megtartására.
Köszönöm szépen, tisztelettel köszöntök mindenkit, akik itt a teremben és távol megjelentek a mai rendezvényen. Külön köszönöm a szervezőknek a meghívást, hogy az idei Adatnap konferencián is aktívan részt vehetek. Az első konferencián még csak eIDAS rendeletről és digitális adattárcákról beszéltem, arról is röviden a panelben. Idén azért egy nagyobb merítést sikerült vállalni. Én röviden arról szeretnék beszámolni, hogy a kormányzati informatika, az e-közigazgatás, illetve a informatikai infrastruktúra fenntartása oldaláról, a Digitális Magyarország ügynökség részéről, hogyan látjuk az adatvagyon jelenlegi helyzetét, az adatvagyon politikát, az adatgazdaság beindítását és további növekedési lehetőségeit, illetve hogyan értékeljük a vonatkozó uniós jogszabályokat. Én kevesebbet fogok beszélni konkrétan az adatpolitikai EU-s jogszabályokról, és inkább a többi szintén adatokkal foglalkozó jogszabályról szeretnék majd inkább szót ejteni. Itt ezen a dián felsoroltam néhány olyan jogszabályt, amik nagyon fontosak. Minden egyes jogszabálynál adatok jönnek és mennek, adatkezelők, adatfeldolgozók, informatikai rendszerek működtetői aktívan dolgoznak rajta, hogy együtt tudjanak működni ezek végrehajtásában, és az látszik, hogy a központi építő elemek, miután megvan a uniós jogszabály, miután megtörténik a jogharmonizáció, azok elkészülnek, de kisebb-nagyobb lemaradásban vannak az egyes ágazatok, abban a tekintetben, hogy milyen gyorsan tudnak csatlakozni a központi építőelemekhez, mennyi időt vesz igénybe az ágazati szabályozás átalakítása, mennyi időt vesznek igénybe a közbeszerzési eljárások, illetve az egész új gondolkodás átvétele. Ehhez meglátásaink szerint azért jóval több motivációs elemre lenne szükség, de alapvetően azt látjuk, hogy az adatvagyon politika terén is az egyes ágazatok, itt néhányat említésszerűen felsoroltam, elég jó ütemben zárkóznak fel, és mindegyiknek, aki már belekóstolt az ízébe, vannak saját javaslatai, saját ötletei, és azt gondolom, hogy az ilyen központi szabályozások helyett előbb-utóbb jó, hogyha átalakul, tehát a teljes EU-s működésben, még hogyha nincs is feltétlenül az alapszerződésekben felhatalmazás bizonyos ágazati együttműködésekre, elérik azt, hogy a szolgáltatás nyújtás és a saját működésük megkönnyítése érdekében az informatikai rendszereket, az adatáramlást, azt olyanná tudják alakítani, ami nagyban megkönnyíti a saját munkájukat. És sokkal szofisztikáltabb rendszereket és folyamatokat tudnak létrehozni, mint hogyha a kezdeti, a löketet megadó rendeleteket alkalmaznák. Itt tudnám említeni a szolgáltatási irányelvet egy nagy keretjogszabályként, vagy akár az egységes digitális kapu rendeletet is, amiben történik ugyan adatcsere éles üzemben, de sokkal jobb, hogyha a szektorális szabályozás az mindenre kiterjedően a hatóságok, hivatalok és az érintettek igényeire szabva működik. Megemlíteném a 2030-as célkitűzéseket, volt szó a digitális iránytűről, illetve a digitális évtized szakpolitikai programról. Ez még a Big Data indikátort vizsgálta egy ideig, ez kikerült belőle az új módszertani végrehajtási szabályok szerint, és folyamatban van az előkészítése a felülvizsgálatnak. Magyarország ezt kifejezetten támogatja, és a Budapesti Digital Decade Board ülésén jeleztük is más tagállamokkal együtt, hogy minél hamarabb ezt el kellene kezdeni, mind a kiberbiztonságot, mind pedig az adatvagyon politikát, a ráépülő másodlagos szolgáltatásokat lehetőség szerint elkezdeni felvenni a felülvizsgálati témák közé. És erről szerencsére akkor még biztos jelölt asszony, azóta ugye alelnök asszony támogatásáról is biztosította a tagállamokat. Ugye vannak hazai stratégiai célkitűzések, hazai jogszabályok. Én nem szeretnék az adatvagyon törvényekről így gyors egymás utánban, kettő is követi egymást, tehát változik a szabályozás. Ezt annak lehet betudni, hogy változnak az igények, változnak a körülmények és a lehetőségek. Szerintem a köszöntőben elmondott beszéd is, itt a helysellemisége is utalhat erre, hogy az adatvagyon politika körül nincs végleges döntés, eldöntjük, és 10-20-100 évig úgy fog működni. Itt folyamatos felülvizsgálatra és alkalmazkodásra van szükség. Megemlíteném a Digitális Magyarország ügynökség mellett a Központi Statisztikai Hivatalt és a Nemzeti Adatvagyon ügynökségnek a fontos szerepét, hogy az adatvagyon gazdálkodásban lehetőség szerint nem csak jogszabályi, hanem szakmai és akár műszaki szinten is hogyan tudja támogatni az egyes ágazatokat, illetve megemlíteném, és ez egy kicsit hiányosság is, talán ezt a jelenlevő közönség és a távolról résztvevő közönség is elismeri, hogy még mindig igen érvényesek a nemzeti adatpolitikáról készült fehér könyvnek, azt hiszem 2016-os ez a dokumentum mondásait, és azóta sem készült ettől újabb stratégiai dokumentum, ami viszont kifejezetten időszerű lenne. Amivel mi elég sokat foglalkozunk a DMÜ-ben és az IDOMSZOK-ban, az az, hogy a interoperabilitási platformként szolgáló központi kormányzati szolgáltatásbusz 44 közhiteles nyilvántartás, több mint 500 szolgáltatását kínálja jelenleg, ami ugye az adatáramláshoz és az állami működéshez kifejezetten fontos, és további adatkezelők csatlakozása is folyamatban van. A digitális állampolgárság célkitűzések részeként számos további csatlakozás várható. Ez azért nagyon előnyös, mert hozzá fog járulni az automatizált adatátadáshoz, ami lehetővé teszi a folyamatok merőben, mélyében történő megújítását is. Emellett pedig ugye hozzájárul a digitális állampolgársággal szintén összhangban a EU-s szinten once only principle-ként emlegetett ilyen hazai szinten egyszeri adatszolgáltatás elvének a végrehajtásához. Szintén szeretném megemlíteni a piaci partnerségek fontosságát. Ugye rengeteg tagja van állami és piaci oldalról a Mesterséges Intelligencia koalíciónak, aminek a tevékenységét jelenleg kormánybiztos úr fel fogja rázni, ezt szerintem a kinevezése és a kormányzati megbízatása elvárja tőle is. Megemlíteném a digitális állampolgársággal kapcsolatos konzultációkat, ez a digitális közszolgáltatások fejlesztéséről szól, ez van a központban. Megemlíteném a Nemzeti Adatvagyonügynökség piaci adatszolgáltatás vagy szolgáltatásait, tehát lehet hozzá az ügyben fordulni, hogy tájékoztatást adjon az államnál elérhető, újrahasznosítható adatok felelhetőségéről, illetve az elérés feltételeiről, a díjazásról, vagy akár nekik is tanácsot adjon, hogy milyen nagyobb hozzáadott értékű szolgáltatásokat építhetnek a nyers adatvagyonra. Azt szeretném kiemelni, hogy a Digitális Európa programban egyre több magyar szervezet, illetve más közvetlen uniós forrásokban is egyre több magyar szervezet vesz részt közvetlenül, multi-country projektek keretében különböző határokon átívelő adatcsere együttműködéseket végeznek. Ezek központilag is történnek, illetve számos ágazatban egyedileg megtörténnek, és számos ilyen kutatásfejlesztési célú együttműködés is körvonalazódik. Én ezeket átugranám, hogy egy kicsit tudjunk gyorsítani rajta. Ami problémákat jelent, az jelenleg az, hogy egészen vegyes, és ez nem csak Magyarországon van így a meglátásaink szerint, hanem más tagállamokban is, de még az Európai Bizottság egyes szervezeti egységeire is jellemző, hogy egészen eltérő az, hogy a digitalizáció terén ki mennyire felkészült, ki mennyire lelkes, milyen pénzügyi lehetőségei vannak, milyen szakmai céljai vannak. Nyilván ezeket lehet segíteni úgy kormányzati oldalról, magyar részről, a Digitális Magyarország ügynökségről, mint mondjuk a bizottságon belül a DG Connect vagy DG Digit tevékenysége által. Nagyon eltérő az, hogy az egyes ágazatokban és azon belül is az egyes szakrendszerekben milyen minőségű, mennyire jól szolgáltatható és feldolgozható adatkörök állnak rendelkezésre, ezek mennyire egyediek, mennyire szabványosítottak, és milyen dokumentáció és milyen leíró adatok állnak róluk rendelkezésre. Az információbiztonság és a kibervédelem az mindig elhangzik, mint kötelező követelmény. Erről nagyon-nagyon kevés beszélni. Ezeknek a műszaki részleteit az egyes fejlesztésekbe bele kell tervezni, és folyamatosan dolgozni és együttműködni más szervezetekkel azon, hogy folyamatosan magas szinten tudjuk tartani az információbiztonságot, hogy egy számos kockázat keletkezik ebből, és akár bírságolható, de akár helyreállíthatatlan károk is keletkezhetnek. Tehát a folyamatos készenlét és a felkészültség vezetői szintről, ügyintézői szintről, informatikai szintről az elengedhetetlen. Volt, és folyamatban is van még részben a időközi felülvizsgálat az egyes uniós források tekintetében, meg az egyes tagállami felhasználás tekintetében. Talán ez a ciklus közepi, ez egy megfelelő időintervallum ahhoz, hogy kellene rugalmasan lehessen kezelni mind a közvetlen uniós forrásokat, mind az RRF-et, mind pedig azokat a forrásokat, amik a tagállami operatív programok fejlesztéseit megalapozzák. Ami problémát jelent a határon átívelő digitális közszolgáltatás nyújtás terén, az az elektronikus kézbesítési szabályok teljes hiánya, ezt már többször többen jelezték. Felülvizsgálat során az eIDAS rendelet módosításánál sem került bele, pedig nagyon fontos lenne. A másik, amire itt felhívnám a figyelmet, az nem is annyira akadály, hanem egy új kihívás, ami az interoperabilitási tesztelésekre vonatkozik. Ez nem csak a tagállamokban az önértékeléseket követően alkalmazandó szabály, hanem a Inter-Service Consultation során már a jogszabályok előkészítésétől minden egyes európai bizottsági szervezeti egység, de a bizottságon kívül más uniós szervezetekre is vonatkozik, hogy a javaslatokat, azokat már fejben úgy végig kell gondolni, hogy informatikailag lehetőleg végrehajtható legyen, és az interoperabilitási elvárásoknak megfelelő legyen az előterjesztés, és utána pedig maguk a technikai előírások a végrehajtási rendeletek szintjén. Én arra felhívnám a figyelmet, hogy a szabályozás a legritkább esetben figyel arra, hogy milyen legacy rendszerek vannak, amik elavultak, nem olyan formátumban, nem olyan technológián tárolnak adatokat, és ez folyamatos probléma. 20 éve, 10 éve, 5 éve nem oldódott meg. Én nem gondolom, hogy jövőre vagy 5 éven belül ez meg fog oldódni, de az nagyon fontos, hogy mindig elégséges átmeneti időszakot hagyjunk a felkészülésre. Vannak technikai megoldások az ilyen hiányosságok áthidalására, és előbb-utóbb pedig az, ugye az életciklus miatt az informatikai rendszerek megújulásával ezek megoldhatóak. Itt hallgatva a többi előadót, én összegyűjtöttem néhány a dián láthatón kívüli javaslatot is, és egyáltalán nem konklúziót szeretnék mondani, hanem itt a nyitó előadások után az elkövetkezendő viták, panelbeszélgetések és előadások felé egy pár javaslatot tenni. Javaslom mérlegelni, hogy erről is néhány szó essen. Az egyik a már említett dömping. Ugye ugyan a magyar elnökség kevés dosszié maradt rá, de ez is elég sok feladatot adott a rendezvényekkel együtt, meg az átmeneti időszakkal együtt. Most már a munkatervben látszik az, hogy milyen jogszabály előterjesztések várhatók, legalább a csomagra rálátunk, hogy mi lesz nagyjából a tartalma és milyen ütemezéssel fognak talán érkezni. Az nagyon fontos, hogy most mindenki, aki a végrehajtási oldalon ül és dolgozik, az azt várja, hogy egy kicsit fellélegezhessen, és itt az átmeneti időszakok, amik gyakran legyen szó mesterséges intelligenciáról, legyen szó adattárcákról, legyen szó a digitális évtized 20-30-ig tartó vállalásainak a végrehajtásáról, az átmeneti időszakban igényel végrehajtásra elégséges időt, meg erőforrást. Nyilván szükséges új célokat kitűzni, de ezeket az informatikai végrehajthatóság realitásaival és itt az interoperabilitási értékelések, hatásvizsgálatok kötelezettségével együtt javasolt mérlegelni. A másik meglátásom, hogy szabványok ugye maguktól nem szoktak keletkezni, ezt vagy egy magánszervezet, akinek a jogtulajdona az adott szabványnak a tartalma, és a megoldásai erre sokszor építkeznek, vagy pedig ugye közpénzen finanszírozott, mondjuk európai, vagy akár tagállami szabványosító testületek által elkészített műszaki, meg folyamatbeli leírások ezek, és a meglétük az talán még kevésbé fontos, mint a hiányuk. A hiányuk az nagyon zavaró az összes jogalkotási folyamatban, amikor próbálunk rájuk építeni, de nem készülnek el időben, akkor az nagy problémákat jelent, csúszik a jogszabály végrehajtása. Én azt gondolom, hogy Európának összességében és az EU-nak sokkal bátrabbnak kellene lennie, sokkal kevesebb más, akár világhatalom, akár kisebb ország által kidolgozott, vagy nagy globális gyártó által kidolgozott szabványt kellene alkalmazzunk, és helyette inkább sajátokat készíteni és alkalmazni. Ez ugye a szuverenitáshoz is hozzájárul, és végső soron a versenyképességhez is hozzá tud járulni. Másrészt pedig ugye az európai szabályozás által elvárt interoperabilitásnak az egyik záloga lehet. következő javaslatom az, hogy itt a folyamatosan változó környezetre, és nem csak az adatpolitikára értem ezt, hanem az összes digitális szabályozásra, már eleve be kell építeni az elvárt felülvizsgálatot. 1 éven belül, 2 éven belül, 5 éven belül, mert biztosak lehetünk abban, hogy bármilyen jogszabály, meg annak a végrehajtási rendeleteit fogadtuk most el, azok nagyon hamar el fognak avulni, a technológia újat fog hozni, mások is foglalkoznak szabályozással, meg szakpolitikával, OECD például, vagy ilyen vezető gazdaságok globális szinten, és hogyha nem tesszük elég rugalmassá, akkor hiába hajtunk végre valamit, mire odaérünk, az már elavultnak fog számítani. És az összes felülvizsgálattal Magyarország eddig nagyjából egyetértett, legyen szó távközlési témákról, legyen szó digitális közszolgáltatásokról, fontos, hogy előre lássunk és előre gondolkozzunk. És a végére még annyit hagytam, amit még korábban tanultam meg az adatokról, hogy az adatvagyon-politika, meg az adatfelhasználás tekintetében én egy ilyen 3 elemű prioritás listát látok. Az egyik, és ez nagyjából minden ágazatra igaz, az egyik az a fő cél, a szakmai cél, hogyha mondjuk az agráriumot tekintjük, akkor az élelmezés, hogyha az egészségügyet, akkor a gyógyítás, hogyha általánosságban bármelyik szektort elővesszük, akkor a fő célnak ennek kell lennie. A második célkitűzés vagy prioritás az minden esetben az oktatási, képzési, a mindennapi működési, kutatásfejlesztési, kapcsolatépítési felhasználása az adatvagyonnak, és a harmadik prioritásba esik az adatvagyonnak ez a gazdasági célú másodlagos felhasználása, ez is akár több kategóriába felosztható. Lehet, hogy van olyan, ami a mindennapi élet kényelmét szolgálja, illetve vannak olyanok, amik a szükségesek, feltétlenül szükségesek. És én ezzel be is fejeztem az előadásomat. Köszönöm szépen még egyszer, hogyha jut idő kérdésekre, akkor most is szívesen válaszolok, illetve később is maradok, és holnap is tervezek részt venni. Köszönöm.
Köszönjük szépen Gábor igazgató úrnak ezeket a nagyon nívós áttekintéseket és a javaslatokat is. És szerintem Friszkoroszkem Ebbingnek is biztos jól esett, hogy angolul feliratozott prezentációt olvashattak a kollégájával. A konferencia időt viszont jelentősen fogyasztjuk, és itt a második szekcióban angol nyelven lennének bejelentkezések a Föld minden pontjáról, a több óra időeltolódással is, ezért 10 percet le szeretnénk nyelni a felhalmozott 20 percből. De az lenne a javaslatunk, hogy akinek nagyon-nagyon kérdezhetnékje van, azt most én a szünetre kérném oldalra a folyosón, hogy keressen bennünket és összepárosítunk mindenkit mindenkivel. De a szünet után 16 óra 30-kor szeretnénk a második blokkot elkezdeni, úgyhogy használják ki az időt. Egyet kértek a helyszíngazdái, hogy ide a szünetből megmaradt enni-innivalót ne hozzunk be a díszterembe. Ezt kérem, tartsák tiszteletbe. További jó konferenciát kívánok mindenkinek. Még egy dolog, hogy nagyon elmenni nem érdemes, mert még jön zivatar keletről. Jó? Köszönöm szépen.
Valakinek eszébe jusson.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, from this point, we turn our conference official language into English because there's an international session which is a kind of innovation of this conference. As our plans in 2024 was to establish a kind of annual conference series focusing on data strategies, data management, data governance, and going on right now. This is the second conference that we have here at the Pazman. We try to go on with this successful innovation to establish a kind of cooperation, kind of bridge among the stakeholders of the data, and we plan the means of enlarging the participants of the presenters, and the audience. This is the reason that we screen this conference as well. And this session today, before the reception that we have just in the conference room, we'll have a wide range of European international organizations and participants from the Global South from Chile, who all these participants will give broader overview of data governance and how international bodies and how EU bodies getting in connection with data, artificial intelligence, and related topics. First of all, let me introduce Friso Roskamp-Alving, my colleague in the EU Fundamental Rights Agency,
who's a senior advisor on strategic communication. So please, the floor is yours, Friso.
Köszönöm szépen, dear Balázs, for inviting the EU Agency for Fundamental Rights to this important international conference to speak about that very timely topic. Data governance, namely, goes to the very heart of what our agency's core business is about: fundamental rights, rule of law, and democracy. We need to be stronger and smarter to defend democracy, rule of law, and fundamental rights in the most challenging time since the Second World War. These words were expressed today in Warsaw by Sirpa Rautio, director of the Fundamental Rights Agency, in the context of the high-level Polish EU presidency seminar on the role of civil society in protecting the rule of law. It's an honor to stand before you today at the Day for Data conference here in Budapest, speaking in the place of Sierpa Rautio, our director. Now, in 2020, our agency published a report titled Getting the Future Right, Artificial Intelligence and Fundamental Rights, which stated, did you know that artificial intelligence already plays a role in deciding what unemployment benefits someone gets, where a burglary is likely to take place, whether someone is at risk of cancer, or who sees that catchy advertisement for low mortgage rates? By 2022, our Bias in Algorithms report opened with the following words: AI is everywhere and affects everyone, from our social media feeds to the social benefits we receive. As decisions impacting our daily lives become increasingly automated, the fundamental rights dimension needs to be ensured. It's vital that technology works for us and not against us, or against some of us. The European Union is at a crossroads. We speak of simplification and competitiveness, but let us be clear, simplification must not come at the cost of fundamental rights. A gender-biased recruitment tool, for instance, is not efficient. It is deeply flawed. An AI-driven decision system that discriminates against minorities does not enhance competitiveness. It undermines it. High-quality, rights-compliant technology is better technology. And Europe, if it wants to lead, must insist on both. In my short intervention today, I will, very briefly, touch upon 4 interrelated topics: building blocks of the defense of fundamental rights in the algorithmic era, freedom of speech, disinformation, AI and discrimination, and election. So let me quickly start with freedom of speech and hate speech. Democracy thrives on freedom of speech, but as we have seen, it also suffers when this principle is abused. At the Munich Security Conference earlier this year, some suggested that any moderation of online content is a threat to free expression. But let us be clear, freedom of speech is not freedom to break the law. It does not give someone the right to harass women, to spread anti-Semitic tropes, or intimidate complainants. Illegal content is not protected by freedom of expression. The correct detection of such content is, admittedly, very challenging. Not only because of the vast amount of online content produced on a daily basis, the use of algorithms and AI may be needed to support content moderation to work at scale. However, these tools are far from perfect and need to be used with caution and with human review. Hate speech can easily evade detection. Consider this. In France, our agency's testing of algorithms, it was found that single words made a big difference in speech detection. For example, we found that just adding the word love after a hateful sentence can make the algorithmic, now I have it, system missing the statement. To measure is to know. Our data reveals the extent of the problem. 61% of people who experienced anti-Semitism said it happened online. Almost a quarter of Jewish respondents, 24%, avoid posting online content that would identify them as Jewish. Now, if people feel they must censor themselves for safety, then the true cost is democracy itself. Unfortunately, large platforms are very protective of their data. It is very difficult, even often impossible, to access platforms for the purpose to test and research compliance with fundamental rights. Our agency is facing problems when accessing platforms' data. However, without being able to measure and learn, we remain often in the dark and do not know whether there is too much legal content deleted or too little illegal content removed. While some errors on both sides are unavoidable, it is really important, of course, to understand the situation. The Digital Services Act gives a tool to fight this, requiring platforms to remove illegal content and mitigate systemic risk to fundamental rights, as well as allow access to data for researching systemic risks. Now we must ensure these laws are enforced, as the European Commission only yesterday did in regard to the Digital Markets Act. Our agency will provide more evidence and guidance on fundamental rights risks on online platforms with respect to hate speech and other illegal content online in the coming months, so stay tuned. Let me now speak shortly about disinformation and the right to credible information. Disinformation is a weapon against democracy. It erodes trust, polarizes society, and destabilizes elections. The Digital Services Act mandates that very large online platforms assess and mitigate these risks and provide access to vetted researchers for oversight. But laws alone are not enough. We must foster media literacy, encourage critical thinking, and promote transparency. As a strategic human rights communicator, not an expert in this area as you all are, I often like to present strategies through a very practical framework to better introduce crucial concepts to audiences. To that end, I've developed the so-called 10 Ps, a set of very simple principles to help prevent, address, and combat disinformation in a structured and effective way. First and foremost, fostering media and digital literacy, encouraging critical thinking, promoting transparency begins early. Human rights education must include digital literacy as a form of prevention, the first P. Secondly, we need to pre-bunk instead of debunk. Citizens need the tools to distinguish fact from fiction before they encounter harmful content. But we must go further, namely proactively promote accurate narratives and values, rather than simply debunking misinformation after it spreads. Societal norms evolve, namely, when narratives are strategically established through repetition. To build democratic resilience, we must also protect the independence of the media and ensure that tech companies do not exercise unchecked power over public discourse. Prosecution, we are at P number 4, is key as well. Legal frameworks should include prosecution mechanisms to hold accountable those who spread disinformation that incites hatred or violence. We should also actively promote quality journalism and support both investigative reporting and publicly funded broadcasters, especially at the local level. Governments and institutions must push accurate, data-based information with the same speed and reach, or preferably even faster and more broadly disseminated than false narratives. Partnerships is key number 7. We need to identify trusted messengers and amplify diverse voices to reach wider and more varied audiences. Choosing the right platforms determines success, tailoring delivery to where audiences are and where audiences are most likely to engage. Responses to disinformation should be people-focused, rooted in real human stories, building emotional connections and trust. Those stories, and we arrive at the final P, should carry a tone of positiveness, hopeful, forward-looking messages that inspire confidence in democratic values and institutions from the outset. Before discussing briefly AI, let me close this section on disinformation by emphasizing that democracy depends not only on free speech, but on informed speech, where facts, not falsehoods, shape public debate. AI, avoiding discrimination, protecting minorities. As a Dutch national, I have closely witnessed that Europe has already seen the devastating consequences of unchecked algorithmic discrimination. The Dutch childcare benefits scandal falsely accused thousands of families, and then disproportionately from minority backgrounds, of fraud, ruining lives in the process. Yet, some argue that safeguarding fundamental rights creates barriers to innovation. Let's really dispel this myth. High-quality AI is fundamental rights compliant AI. A hiring tool that unfairly filters out women or minorities is not competitive. It is defective. A banking algorithm that denies credit based on biased data is not innovative. It is legally vulnerable and frankly risky for banks' businesses. The EU's AI Act is a milestone in setting standards, the first globally ensuring AI systems undergo fundamental rights impact assessments. We, as an agency, are actively contributing to this, developing methodologies to assess AI risks, advising on AI Act implementation, and scrutinizing high-risk AI applications, including biometric identification and digital justice tools. We must remain firm. A strong Digital Services Act and a robust AI Act are not obstacles to competitiveness. They are Europe's competitive edge in the digital economy. And finally, some few words about elections and the right to fair democratic processes. This information, as we have seen, is no longer just an abstract concern. It is a direct threat to democracy. The recent annulled Romanian presidential election exposed how disinformation can manipulate voters and undermine trust in institutions. Our upcoming Fundamental Rights report will address this head-on, focusing on fair, transparent and safe elections, including the online dimension. The challenge is clear. Protecting democracy in the digital age means defending the integrity of our elections. If we fail, we risk not just flawed elections, but the erosion of democracy itself. Ladies and gentlemen, in conclusion, the urgency is real, but so is our commitment. The Fundamental Rights Agency is not just observing these trends. We are actively shaping policy, advising the European Commission, and ensuring that fundamental rights are at the core of digital governance. Simplification must not mean cutting corners on human dignity. Competitiveness must not come at the cost of fairness. The European Union must lead by example, because rights-compliant technology is better technology. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Friso. And it was a really important starting point for this session that you rose awareness towards democracy and towards human rights that we'll focus on in this panel. And we will enlarge the scope starting from the EU and the Fundamental Rights Agency, and now we are going a bit further to see how the Council of Europe is getting in connection with data. And I hope that Christian Bartolin is online. Yes, I see he's here. It's nice to meet you. Let me introduce you as the head of Data Protection Unit of the Council of Europe. And so, Christian, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I hope you can all hear me.
Yep, perfect.
Perfect, very good. It was a very interesting intervention just now by my old friend Friso from the FRA, and I will try to follow in his footsteps. First of all, by thanking you for inviting the Council of Europe to speak at this important event. Data governance can be defined as a regulatory framework pertaining to data quality, data stewardship, data protection and compliance, and data management. It is closely linked to the slightly broader concept of digital governance, which the Council of Europe in general uses to describe its standard-setting policies and initiatives in this area. The Council of Europe is a regional intergovernmental organization with 46 European states as its members. Established in 1949, and distinct from the European Union, the Council of Europe works across three pillars: human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. The European Court of Human Rights is an important and well-known institution of the organization, but the Council of Europe addresses many other issues, from education to cybercrime. And in many of these contexts, we work closely with states from other regions taking or informing decisions. The challenges that new and emerging digital technologies pose to society cannot be meaningfully addressed at domestic or even regional levels only. To be efficient, there must be a global legal and policy framework, creating a level playing field for all relevant actors across regions and providing for international cooperation. It is often alleged that regulation constitutes in itself a hindrance of our technological innovation and the resulting economic growth. This is, however, manifestly not the case if the regulation in question is sufficiently targeted and calibrated. On the contrary, such regulation may rather improve the chances of economic growth because it favors responsible innovation and allows for societies to make use of the technology without having to fear unintended consequences in the form of abuse and misuse by the state or by a private entity. We are facing a digital divide globally, and the uneven access to, for instance, AI technology across the world's various regions, as well as the uneven protection against abuse and misuse, makes this problem even more important to address now and in the future. It is our aim to contribute to the bridging of this divide. The Council of Europe has for decades been involved in digital governance issues at European and global levels, ranging from personal data protection over cybercrime to AI. I should mention in particular cybercrime, as this is known as the Budapest Convention. The organization and its member states have, in close cooperation with states from other regions of the world, as well as other international and regional organizations, over the years developed robust and flexible legally binding frameworks promoting global governance of digital issues. The most recent example is the Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence and Human Rights, Democracy and the Rule of Law from 2024. AI is a groundbreaking digital technology which is already changing the way we work. Used responsibly, this technology comes with great promise for science, public health, education, the economy, in short, for most aspects of society. Used irresponsibly, it may lead to serious violations of human rights and can become a tool of political repression. The Council of Europe initiated work on the regulation of AI in the context of protecting human rights, democracy and the rule of law back in 2019 through a multidisciplinary and inclusive process involving representatives of states, international and regional organizations, civil society, academia and industry. By the end of 2021, work had progressed so far that the Committee of Ministers of the organization, which are the Ministers of Foreign Affairs, decided to proceed with the opening of negotiations of a legally binding instrument. The instrument should address the risks posed by AI technology while promoting innovation, and it should be based on relevant international, including human rights law. Negotiations involving the 46 member states of the Council of Europe, 11 non-member states, and representatives of international and regional European organizations, including the United Nations, the OECD, and the European Union, as well as 68 representatives of civil society, academia, and industry, began in earnest in the autumn of 2022 and were finalized on 14th of March 2024. On 17th of May of 2024, the Committee of Ministers adopted the new Council of Europe Framework Convention on Artificial Intelligence and Human Rights, Democracy and Rule of Law. On 5th September of that year, the treaty was officially opened for signature. So far, 14 states and the European Union have already signed. The AI Framework Convention will enter into force after the 5th ratification and will then be open for accession by states which did not participate in its negotiation. The AI Framework Convention is by design intended to serve as a legal basis for global cooperation on addressing the main challenges posed by AI to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. This is because at the Council of Europe, we do not believe that purely regional approaches will suffice when it comes to ensuring the safe use of digital technologies. Having even access to these technologies is an issue globally, and so is the access to protection against their abuse or misuse. The Council of Europe and the states from other regions having negotiated the Framework Convention consider it to be an important means to create a committed global dialogue on AI and a way to contribute to bridging the digital divide. The Framework Convention is centered around 7 basic principles: human dignity and individual autonomy, transparency and oversight, accountability and responsibility, equality and non-discrimination, privacy and personal data protection, reliability, and safe innovation. The treaty uses the OECD definition of an AI system and applies to both public and private sector AI systems. It adopts a risk-based approach and hence apply only to those AI systems which are deemed to pose a risk to human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. Parties are obliged to provide for remedies and procedural safeguards and to set up a risk and impact management framework. A special body to be composed of the states that have ratified or acceded to the treaty, the Conference of the Parties, will oversee the implementation of the Framework Convention and provide for its implementation as well as other forms of relevant international cooperation and information exchange. The Committee on Artificial Intelligence of the Council of Europe, having finalized the negotiations of the Framework Convention, has also elaborated a methodology for the risk and impact management of AI systems. This methodology, called HUDERIA, is a non-legally binding practical tool providing guidance to the parties. It will have to be continuously updated in the future. Importantly, the AI Framework Convention does not create new human rights specific to digital technologies, but facilitates the continuous seamless application of existing rights in a context where AI systems are being used to make or inform sensitive decisions. This could, for instance, concern an administrative or judicial decision by a public authority impacting on the rights of an individual, or the decision by a private entity to recruit, grant a credit, or provide insurance to an individual. Given the versatility of AI systems, there are many such situations where an individual may be facing an AI system, taking or informing decisions impacting her or his life in a significant manner, and there's a very real risk that such decisions may, inadvertently, turn out to be biased and constitute unlawful discrimination if the processing by the AI system is not properly managed and controlled. This is where the AI Framework Convention adds value by obliging its parties to guarantee the same legal standards of protection in the case when an AI system is being used as in any other case. The AI Framework Convention has not been designed on the basis of a particular regional human rights framework and mechanism, but on globally applicable norms and leaving the necessary space for adaptation to the specific needs of parties. It therefore has the potential to become a global standard. The Council of Europe and its partners have from the outset considered that only an inclusive and global reply to the challenges posed by AI would be efficient. States from the Americas, the Middle East, and the Asia-Pacific region participated in the negotiations and will hopefully ratify the Framework Convention in due time. Another important aspect of data or digital governance is, of course, the protection of personal data. Here, the Convention for the Protection of Individuals with regard to automatic processing of personal data, also known as Convention 108, from 1981, with 55 parties from all parts of the world, is the only existing legally binding international treaty with global relevance in this field. With the modernization of Convention 108, and this modernization is also known as Convention 108 Plus, the original principles contained in the groundbreaking legal instrument have been reaffirmed, some have been strengthened, and some new safeguards have been introduced. Convention 108 had to be applied to the new realities of the online world, while new practices had led to the recognition of new principles in the field. The principles of transparency, proportionality, accountability, data minimization, privacy, and privacy by design are now acknowledged as key elements of the protection mechanism and have been integrated in the modernized Convention 108 Plus. Convention 108 Plus also provides a robust and flexible multilateral legal framework to facilitate the flow of data across borders while providing effective safeguards when personal data are being used. It constitutes a bridge between different regions of the world and different normative frameworks, including the new European Union's legislation that has become fully applicable in 2018, and which refers to the Convention 108 in the context of transport data flows. Some of the innovations contained in Convention 108 Plus are the following: stronger requirements regarding the proportionality and data minimization principles and lawfulness of the processing. Extension of the types of sensitive data, which will now include genetic and biometric data, trade union membership and ethnic origin. Obligation to declare data breaches, greater transparency of data processing, new rights for the persons in an algorithmic decision-making context, which are particularly relevant in connection with the development of artificial intelligence, stronger accountability of data controllers, a requirement that the privacy by design principle is applied, application of the data protection principles to all processing activities, including for national security reasons, with possible exceptions and restrictions subject to the conditions set by the Convention, and in any case with independent and effective review and supervision. A clear regime of transported data flows, and a reinforced powers and independence of the data protection authorities, and enhancing legal basis for the international cooperation in this field. It is our ambition that Convention 108 Plus will enter into force in the next years. To sum up my intervention, the Council of Europe is not only convinced of the need for global digital and data governance, but has also since 1981 played a pivotal role in providing the legal and policy frameworks enabling global governance of key legal aspects of data and digital technologies. We have, and we are committed to continuing to do so, closely cooperated with major global and international partners, including the European Union, to create flexible and efficient solutions benefiting citizens across multiple jurisdictions, and not just in Europe alone. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you, Christian.
It was a fascinating overview of this large challenge of how to setting norms in relation to data and to raise a question again and again how the principles can be implemented. It's always a big question. Thank you so much. And let us go on and even more broaden the scope. And let us see a global view. I kindly ask Mr. Zoltán Turbék to hold his lecture.
So good afternoon, everyone. thank you for the invitation to the organizers, especially Balázs and Gyuri also. It's also a privilege to be here and to speak after Christian, with whom I had the chance to work together for like 5 years in the context of the Council of Europe. He was the secretary to the KAHAI and also KAI committees, and I was a member of that committee, and we met several times in Strasbourg. So I feel very privileged to be here and to speak after Christian. So first of all, I think most importantly, what I will say today I will say in my personal capacity and not in my capacity, in my official capacity. So please consider my messages according to that. And so that was the disclaimer. And as you already heard, we had the chance to hear about the Council of Europe and also the EU frameworks. My intention is to broaden the geographical scope from regional to global, and I will focus on the UN context, which is, I think, much less known and much less studied until now. Many people talk about and did research on the GDPR and many different aspects, for example, of the EU framework, but I think that the UN context is less known, perhaps also because of the structure of the UN, which is extremely complicated. And yeah, how do I? Oh, it's working. Okay. So I will start my presentation with certain definitions on data governance. I selected a couple of them, actually 6 of them, which also shows that there is a huge confusion and there is lack of consensus on basic definitions. On the screen you see the World Bank definition on data governance, which refers to norms, infrastructure policies, laws and regulations for data, or related to economic policies and institutions, which can effectively enable the safe and trustworthy use of various types of data. So that's one definition, but we have many others. I don't want to read all of them, but I think it shows that this is a topic, just like AI, which requires lots of discussions and clarifications in the coming years. So there is a lot to learn, I think, for all of us, and that's why I think it's great that you organize conferences like this. Thank you. Oh, did I do? Okay, no, I think I used one.
Just press again.
Okay, yeah, sorry. This is the best, you know, when we talk about technical issues and I don't know how to use technology, but anyway. Yeah, so at the moment, I think we clearly see that the data governance discussions and the frameworks are complex, as I said, and we have a fragmented data governance landscape with many parallel initiatives, EU regional initiatives, Council of Europe initiatives, OECD is also extremely active, and if you think about also the UN entities, in their specific fields, they also deal with data, certain aspects of data. Just think about OHCHR, which deals with human rights aspects, or the High Commission for Refugees, which deals with refugees and internal displaced people, and also the data is extremely relevant in that context. Or climate-related data by IPCC or the World Meteorological Organization. But at the same time, so we have this fragmented landscape and different approaches, and at the same time we have data inequalities and significant challenges related to data availability. Just think about certain continents like Africa, where actually even the creation of data is also difficult, and they are much less available if we compare it with Western countries. In addition, we also have asymmetric concentration of data and also different interests and different stakeholders, which some have extremely strong access and high access to data. Just think about some of the big tech companies. While there are countries where actually the data is missing, or there are no proper infrastructures to capture the data. So there is this divide between the global north and the global south, but also between the different stakeholders. Civil society have much less access to data, while some of the companies, I mean huge tech companies create huge data amounts. And what does it call for? Actually, because this is at the moment it's a landscape which doesn't really work and creates lots of uncertainties for the actors also and those who are also affected by this. We need much more strengthened data governance cooperation among countries and the different stakeholders, and also the key international players. More interoperable data governance approaches are also needed, and so not only at the regional and national level, but we would also need to have more international global data governance approaches which ensure the harmonization of the different frameworks. And what is also at the UN level, what is also key is to ensure that all countries, including the developing countries, have the same access to the benefits of data and the same capacities to deal with the new trends or requirements. I just wanted to show you this picture that I borrowed from the Diplo Foundation, which is a wonderful think tank in Geneva. And they did lots of studies on data governance and AI and many other digital related issues. It shows that there are different aspects of data, like human rights, data and development, intellectual property rights, all these. And we have many UN players. I mean, I don't want to go into details, but just think about the health aspects. WHO is one of the players which is also very active in health data aspects. So we should all bring these together and ensure that the system works well. In recent years, there have been many attempts to reform the system, and I decided to choose two studies, one from 2021 and another one from 2023, which very much focused on the need for global data governance. This study that you see on the screen is from the UNCTAD, the UN Conference on Trade and Development, which deals with digital economy and many other aspects, and created a very important report in which they gathered all the arguments which call for global data governance frameworks. I mean, you see it on the screen that because of the, for example, technical coordination across borders is essential in order to avoid further fragmentation of the internet infrastructures, and in order to ensure the equal distribution of benefits of data, we also need to have more global approaches. There were also many other arguments. They are on the slides. Self-regulation also can also create problems, as it also happened in the field of AI. And that's actually why in the Council of Europe we decided to elaborate a treaty which would set the fundamental principles and would not leave everything to companies to regulate as they wish. So also when we have parallel national attempts, regulating data without harmonization, that can also create lots of difficulties. So there's clearly a need for harmonization and more cooperation between the key players. Yes. So in this report, they also highlighted some topics which should be discussed and could be part of a future framework. So we need to have common understanding about definitions. And that was one of the most difficult issues also in the Council of Europe negotiations on AI. I think for a couple of years we discussed what we mean by AI systems. At the end, we decided to borrow, as Christian said, the OECD definition, which was also used by the EU at the end, luckily. So we see some harmonization, at least, also in that area. And there are also other topics like what should be the key rights and principles related to digital and data-related topics. We would need to develop data-related standards, and there's a clearly increasing need for international cooperation and sharing best practices with each other and learning from each other. This report of the UNCTAD also called for a new institutional setup, which remains to be seen still, what we will have, but clearly they highlighted the need for it. And in this future framework that they discussed in this report, they said that everything should be rooted in global universal values and be based on human rights and human dignity. We would need to have a multi-layered governance system, so there is no one perfect structure which would deal with everything. I always say that it's more like a puzzle. We should put together the different elements, and we should ensure that they complement each other and they work well. So in addition to the global or international level, we would need to have, of course, the regional and the national level data governance approaches also. Yes. So that was the first report that I wanted to mention, and the other one is from the Chief Executive Board of the UN, which actually is composed of the heads of the UN agencies, and they had 3 options for the future of data governance, global data governance. You see it in the middle of the slide. So one option would be to have an agreement or declaration on universal data principles. Another would be to have a non-binding data compact, like in the field of migration or refugees. So it would be a soft law instrument, and the third one would be a data convention. But these were also proposals only, and we are not there yet. But I think it shows that there is a ongoing discussion which has to be continued, and there are attempts to do something in this field. And now I will focus on a more recent development. So there was this Global Digital Compact. I don't know whether it was mentioned already today or not, but it's a document which was adopted by all member states last year in 2024 by the UN General Assembly. And actually this is the new document which is part of the Pact for the Future. It was a huge, long process reforming the UN. It was about reforming the UN and making it more effective. And this Global Digital Compact deals with many issues, especially AI. So actually it's the framework document which very much influences the work also in Geneva and in New York and everywhere in the UN system. And there is one aspect which also deals with data, which is important for today's topic and today's conference, which called for, so the objective 4, which calls for advancing responsible, equitable, and interoperable data governance approaches. And there were these 5 subtopics that you see. And during the negotiations, as it often happens in intergovernmental negotiations, we started with a very high-level ambition, and the original idea was to call for strengthened international data governance as such. But because of the lack of consensus among member states, it had to be softened a little bit, and now the document only calls for strengthening data governance cooperation at all levels. So you're not only global, which is questioned by some of the actors, but at regional and national level also. And as you see in the second point, second bullet, the UN was supposed to play a key role in promoting harmonization of data governance initiatives. But at the end, we have a much softer language, and actually different language which focuses on capacity building, especially in the countries which, developing countries which are in huge need. And we started from a UN General Assembly process, which would take place in New York, and highly politicized. But at the end, it delegated the task to the so-called CSTD, that's the Commission on Science and Technological Development, which is under the UNCTAD. That's why I had that report on one of the slides. And so the CSTD has to set up a working group. Yes, so this is the outcome in the Global Digital Compact. So in paragraph 48, it requires the CSTD to establish a dedicated working group, which will have the tasks that you see, the 4 tasks that you see down there, coming up with recommendations for fundamental principles of data governance at all levels, as relevant, so there is this qualifier, as relevant for development. What do we mean by this? And then also it will recommend proposals to support interoperability between the different levels, considerations of sharing of benefits of data, and it will also come up with options to facilitate data flows as relevant again for development. So it's quite broad, but at the same time it's a bit unclear what this group will need to do. And actually, this group is being established right now. The first meeting will take place next week in Geneva. There was an open call for membership, and we had, the UN had over 200 applications coming from all kinds of stakeholders. The idea was to have a very inclusive group, so have participants from different data governance systems, also not only Western, but also third world countries or developing countries also, having also all stakeholders around the same table. And I'm happy to tell you that Hungary is becoming a superpower in data governance, because this group is being chaired by a Hungarian guy, Peter Major, Major Peter, who is vice chair of the CSTD, a long-time ITU official, but he's retired now, and he will be chairing this group. There's a vice chair from Gambia, from the governments, and there will be a stakeholder vice chair, possibly from private sector. And the idea is to have 5 meetings this year. There's no money for the group, so there's a lack of resources, which is actually a huge problem in the UN system right now, thanks to some changes in the multilateral system. So I think that will be a challenge. And as I mentioned, the timeline is the group is supposed to have 5 meetings this year, and then it will need to report to the CSTD, which reports to the ECOSOC, and then the ECOSOC reports to the UN General Assembly. But I think the process will probably take or last for 1.5 years at least. And as I mentioned, the membership is extremely diverse. At the end, it was decided to increase the membership from, I think, 40-some to 54. There are 27 member states and 27 stakeholders. You see Hungary also being represented there. And there are also representatives from academia. You see, again, a very diverse group of all kinds of universities from all around the world. Business community, all the key players, again, from China. There's even a Russian one, the weblog is the one. Again, there is a lady, a Hungarian lady there, so I told you, we are becoming a superpower. She works for, Ms. Schütter works for the International Chamber of Commerce, and I think also took part in the Council of Europe AI treaty process. We have Microsoft represented by Ashutosh, a wonderful Indian guy who represents Microsoft in the UN in Geneva. So some of these big tech companies are opening offices in UN headquarters, capitals also to strengthen their cooperation with international organizations. And we also have civil society, again, very diverse, and the technical community is also present. You see some like IEEE and some other organizations. So the outcome remains to be seen. We don't know what will happen, but I think it's a process which deserves close attention and a close eye from those who are interested in data governance topics. The potential challenges, I think, are the following. I mentioned the lack of resources. I think that can be a problem. Another one is the difficulty to find common ground, despite of because of the different interests and different approaches. And the third danger is, I think, the politicization of the general politicization of UN processes in the whole UN system, but I think also in this specific process. Even the work of technical organizations like the ITU or WIPO is becoming more and more politicized. I think it can also happen in this case. There is a fourth danger, I think, that the group is too big. So when you have experts, lawyers, all around the same table, and actually all who didn't get in can also attend as observers, and they have the same right to intervene, but they won't have voting rights at least. I think it will be quite challenging to achieve consensus, but let's hope that the Secretariat, which provides the Secretariat support to the group, will do its work well, and then facilitate the process, and then hopefully the Hungarian chair will put pressure on the group members, and I think the fifth one, which is perhaps it's a bit broader, is the current crisis in the multilateral system. So lack of resources. We don't know how US will react. For example, they are there, but 2-3 weeks ago there was a process, the CSTD annual session, during which the US even questioned the importance of the Sustainable Development Goals. So. Okay, the gender was another topic, but okay, that's perhaps less relevant in that context. But we do not know how this group will be able to function, especially with the specific focus on development, when you have some players who even question the importance of the SDGs. So, and the guiding principles for the group will be inclusivity, equity, transparency, openness, innovation, and sustainability. Let's see what happens, and perhaps next year when you will have a conference, we can report on the outcome, or we can say that it was a huge failure. We will see. But I also very much look forward to attending these meetings and to see how the international community, what it will come up with. Because of the ongoing process, I couldn't be more concrete, but I think perhaps that's the beauty of this topic, that it's still an ongoing process, and we will see what happens. So, thank you for the attention, and then enjoy the rest of the conference. Yeah,
thank you. Thank you so much. And yes, just coming back to this last sentence, we would like to be a kind of reference point to have an annual conference series that can review back what has happened, to reflect, and to see the future. And that is an important point, to have a kind of ongoing conversation on this topic. And thank you so much. And let me just grab just one sentence that you mentioned, that data can serve as a public good in a global sense as well. And you may ask, how can we just enlarge the scope? Right now we're on a global level, but yes, we can do, because the Day for Data, the Adatnap, would like to bridge. First, bridge the international and the national. I hope that we can bridge the international and the international, so the global and the regional. We would like to bridge the governmental and the non-governmental, and we would like to involve the stakeholders as much as we can. I think this is the most important view for the future conferences like we have today. And this is an outbreak today, because first in this conference series we have a real stakeholder here among us. Let me introduce Gergely Babos, who is a chief data officer of a large company in Hungary. So the floor is yours, and I open the presentation for you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Balázs. Good afternoon, and thank you very much for the invitation. It is an extraordinary location for me to be in such a beautiful room, because I'm used to give presentations in an office building like this that you see behind me. And usually people in the audience are sitting on balls and on the floor and standing and moving all around. So I'm used to a kind of dynamic or vivid environment in the presentation. So it's an extraordinary occasion that everybody is calm and we can have a
no fighting.
Yeah, a discussion like this. So thank you very much. And I still need to try to stay here standing, because I used to walk all around. So it's also challenging for me. Organizations speak a lot about digital transformation, speak about the initial stage, how they started, so what was in the beginning, and what beautiful results they achieved. And sometimes they mention that there are some people in the game. So there are some people who need to transform themselves, and there are some new capabilities which are essential for making this entire digital transformation happen. And now I would like to focus on this part, because OTP Bank is in the middle of a digital transformation, of course. All organizations are in the middle of a digital transformation. And during this transformation, where data was an important pillar, myself, my role has changed a lot comparing to when I started to do this kind of role or this kind of job for the bank. And in my presentation, I would like to share with you my personal experience, how this entire transformation in my role went on. With this one, hopefully works. Okay. First of all, the first question what I put here: am I a CDO? What is a CDO? Right. So if I check the Google hints, the top hints are the Chief Digital Officer, of course, for the CDO, for the abbreviation CDO. The second one, only the second one, is the Chief Data Officer, and there are a lot more. But what is a CDO? What is a Chief Data Officer? A Chief Data Officer, I put here a definition, is a person, corporate officer, responsible for enterprise-wide governance and utilization of information as an asset, by data processing, analysis, data mining, information trading, and other means. So a kind of person who's responsible for everything in terms of data, which is, if we deep dive into that, it is not everything, because it is not about security, about compliance in most cases, but about creating value out of data. CDOs are typically so-called T-shaped persons who have a business knowledge, who have a business understanding why the data is important, what we want to use the data for, and also need to have some kind of deeper technical knowledge about how the data should be processed, what kind of architecture we should build. I'm not a CDO because my title is not a Chief Data Officer in the bank. My title is the Data Services Technical Tribe Lead. It sounds very interesting. I can speak multiple hours about each part of this title. So what it means, I try to make it short. The OTP has started an agile transformation in 2018, and we formed so-called tribes. Tribes are organizational units which are responsible for a certain single domain. So they are capable to make the business within that single domain by their own, without any support of the organization. That was the approach. So we have tribes like the retail customer tribe, retail lending tribe, or global markets tribe, and so on. And we have a tribe for data, for data services. So to build data services, let's call it rather data products for the entire organization, and does everything which is necessary for that to be able to deliver these data products, data services to the organization. So to form the data strategy of the organization, to build data governance around that, and also build the data architecture which is necessary to build data products. So this is mainly the role what I need to play in the organization. But if you look into the definition of the Chief Data Officer, that's practically the same. So, but we never talked about this in the organization, if we want to call it Chief Data Officer or not. So my title is Data Services Technical Tribe Lead. Beside that, I'm also a founding member of the Data Management Association Hungary. And why is it important here? Because in OTP Bank, we use the framework of the Data Management Association to build our data management activities. And this framework is the so-called data management pyramid, which contains all the activities which should which should an organization cover in terms of data management. And if I want to make my presentation short, then I can stop the presentation here, because my first role was the red one, so to be responsible for the data warehouse of the bank, and my current role is mainly the rest. And thanks for the opportunity. But if I go a little bit deeper, then we can follow how the organization transformed, how this digital transformation journey went on, and how my role has changed during the time. As I said, everything is started with a data warehouse in the bank, because the bank has currently more than 200 applications producing data. And the organization wanted to use this data, and it was very hard, very time-consuming, very expensive to collect the data and consolidate the data from these vast amount of sources. And the bank decided to build a data warehouse and make the data deliveries from this data warehouse. as the organization realized that it is a powerful tool, so they can use it for more and more purposes. They wanted to have more and more data deliveries. So the data team, the small data team, should manage this kind of situation when they were earlier purely IT people, just building very nice technology solutions, a very nice data warehouse, but now they had to manage this extreme amount of requests coming to the data warehouse team. So we had to start being a kind of demand managers and project managers to deliver to the organization. But the scaling of the team was not so easy, and because of this, several organizational units decided to build a kind of shadow IT. So to build parallel silos, parallel small data warehouses, which quite soon ended up into a data quality issue, because the data that they saw from one data delivery was completely different compared to what they saw from another one. So it was a data quality issue, and the bank realized that it is not a good direction. And that was the point when they decided to integrate all these shadow ITs and everything into a single organizational unit. And that was the point when I entered the organization and started to integrate these silos. And there was a new job, a new role, which was not approved by the bank at all. So the bank didn't understand why is it necessary to have a data architect. So it was my first role to play a data architect role, to outline the future, the target architecture that the bank should build out of this siloed architecture. So how it should look like to make it less expensive, but also not spending an extreme amount of money on building a beautiful solution, and after 2 years we come back with the solution. But we need to deliver continuously to the organization data, so we cannot stop and say that we are in a transformation, we are closed. For 2 years we don't do anything, just transformation, that's all. So we couldn't do that. So how to do this? And during this exercise, we had to convince the whole organization about the importance of this transformation. So we had to evangelize why is it necessary to make this step. And if we look into the first point, that pure IT people building a data warehouse, and now they have to evangelize why this entire activity should be done, it's a completely different word already. So that's a huge difference in the mindset of people. But at this stage, we couldn't stop, because after the evangelization, the organization understood that there's a value in the data. So we could use the data for more and more purposes. So we need more data, and that's where data strategy was important, to make it crystal clear what are the business goals of the bank and what kind of data delivery we should build to reach those business goals. And when we made this exercise, we realized that, okay, it is not about building a beautiful IT solution. It is about making money out of what we have. So at the end of the day, of course, we need to build an IT solution, an IT architecture, and a maintainable solution. But it is very important how much money the organization will make using this data. And this is a completely different approach how we started to operate. And the KPIs, but we are not using KPIs, we are using KRs, so key results, not KPIs, but the KPIs, so the key results that we started to use in the data organization were business KPIs, not technology KPIs anymore. This was a huge mindset change for everyone, also for the technology people. As we started to build that architecture and the solutions that we planned in our data strategy, we had to centralize a lot of activities within the bank, and after centralizing them, we started to decentralize them, but in a different way. Why? Because the business users were involved more and more into data activities. Business understood that they are the owners of the data. Earlier, IT was the owner of the data, but as we introduced data governance, and by data governance, they understood that they are the owners, and what are the roles, what are the tasks of an owner. They started to be interested in data much more than before, and they wanted to participate into the activities that we were doing. So we started a data mesh organizational approach where the business and data people sit together on business side, and they deliver data products for those data assets which belong to that certain data owner. So this was the next step that we started to do. And in order to make that, of course, it was important that the technology enabled us to make this step, because we could build a platform where business users could develop data products, and this technology opportunity was the cloud, because in the cloud we have those solutions where we can empower the data owners to do that without knowing how to make programming, how to do programming. As we moved on, we are not operating only in Hungary, but we have also multiple subsidiaries. So we are present in 11 countries, and in the majority of the countries, the data maturity of the entire country is lower than in Hungary. So we had to start boosting their digital transformation journey with some data transformation activities. So we started to think on group level about the entire data management, and during this journey, what has changed in my role? So I'm not an IT expert anymore. I have no connection with IT, and I'm not a project manager, and I'm afraid that I'm not a data architect anymore, but I'm rather a business person who needs to negotiate with business and evangelize the whole activity, what we are doing, and understand the business motivations. So just a few lessons learned. I was not prepared for this. I didn't know what I started. I had to learn a lot, and I had to realize that I was quite confident that I'm quite good in data warehouse, and I know everything about that. And I had to realize that it is not enough at all. So I don't know anything about the world which is coming. So I had to be open to that and learn a lot and travel a lot, and it is a continuous activity. So it is not finished. I always have to do that. The second one is the change of mindset in leadership. I talked about this. The third one was the adjustment of the organization, the continuous adjustment of the organization. I've changed in the last 6 years almost 3 times the structure of the organization, because there were so many modifications in the operations, how we work, that we had to reshape the organization to meet these requirements, and to participate and build communities. It is extremely important to have discussion within the organization and out of the organization with other experts who have great ideas, who have some good practices and who have some bad practices, to learn from others' failures and accelerate your work like this. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I will be around here if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And it was fascinating to see how the stakeholders, how a company is dealing with the challenges that they face, and this data transformation activity is something that we have to always come back on the next periods of this conference series. And let me just come back to the starting point of this panel. We were starting with human rights and how data is influencing human rights, and now we come back to the same question, and let me greet our dear colleague Carlos Amunategui, who is here, who was here actually. Yes, he is here. And hello, Carlos. It's nice to see you. You cannot see me, but you will later on. I'm just, I have to wait here. Hello. He's a professor from the Pontifical University of Chile, Santiago, and he's this university, and personally, Carlos is one of our main cooperator and colleague in this new human rights questions. And Carlos, the floor is yours. Show us the future.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor. I really hope that you can hear me all right.
Yes.
Because it's kind of tricky. I'm at the other side of the world right now. Well, so what are we going to speak about today? Because, artificial intelligence is usually the subject of the present. This is something that's happening right now. But the future seems to be different. We're going to speak about a subject of the future that it's now emerging, and it will be probably quite important in the next 10 to 15 years. This is narrow rights. Okay. What are narrow rights? Where do they come from? They come from the convergence of the technologies of the technologies of information and the analysis of the brain. The main question is, sorry, can you hear me all right?
Yep, absolutely. It's okay.
Okay.
Just we made you a bit louder. Thank you.
Okay, So, well, the main question you must address when you're speaking about neural rights is that it is possible for an artificial neural network to read and interpret the data that comes from your natural neural network that is between your ears. Can a machine interpret the data coming from the brain, from the neurological system?
Carlos, just one second. We have some issue with the translation. Can you just hold on for a second, please? And we fix the technical. Okay, just technical issue.
Yes, we always have those.
Hallani? Működik jön valami jelni? Most jó. Most jó?
So, should I go?
No? Just a second. The translators cannot hear you. This is the issue.
Okay.
Halljuk, csak duplán visszhangzik. Ami az is, amit ön mond, és ezáltal az előadó is.
És most, hogyha így beszélek, végig is visszhangzik duplán? No. I think I will turn off this microphone so you can speak. So please continue it and we try to solve the problem.
Okay. Well, so let's hope it does work all right. Well, the thing is that the problem is, can an artificial neural network read what's inside your neurological natural neural network? This is the question. Well, and the answers are coming quite fast. This was an old dream from the 1960s, and experiments have been implemented since the early 70s, starting by Jacques Vidal's pioneering work. Anyhow, basically, this that sounds a lot like sci-fi is now a reality. You got basically two kind of methods to interpret and read the signals from your brain and feed them into a computer. One of these are the invasive methods. The other one are the non-invasive methods. The non-invasive methods are, well, quite well known. You can use, for example, EEG, an electroencephalogram. An electroencephalogram, it's a very old technique. It was birthed in the 1920s, so thanks to the work of Hans Berger. It basically consists of putting some electrodes over your head and trying that the electrodes get a feeling of the signals, of the electrical signals that your brain generates. The electroencephalography reads them as waves, because of course, between the electrodes and your real neurological impulses, you got the skull, so it's not a very exact measure. Anyway, it is quite useful. From nowadays, there are multiple kinds of gadgets that you can buy in the market that use these neurological networks in order to make some things function. For example, like yoga, meditation belts, and some sci-fi leaning toys. Like, for example, there's a kind of a helmet from Star Wars that you can manipulate some scenes from the movies, even jet fights, just using the signals of your brain. Anyway, electroencephalograms are not very powerful. So, although there are some issues with this, for example, the use in China in schools of this kind of technology tool in order to monitor classrooms, to be sure that people are paying attention, or sometimes using them in workplaces, like the mining company BHP that uses this for their truck drivers, they do not seem to be quite a big issue now. More interesting are the studies made with functional magnetic resonances and magnetoencephalograms. Both, they capture signals from the brain and they interpret the magnetic signals that electricity in the postsynaptic activity of the brain generates. You can get images quite detailed of what the brain is doing using any of these methods. What is quite interesting anyway is that some experiments have been made in order to feed this data into an artificial neural network and try to make the network, the model, interpret your brain data. One of the first interesting experiments happened in 2019. It was based on showing people images and then, after training with images, with the neural data from the seeing of images, trying to make the model guess what someone was seeing just from the neural data. And this was quite convincingly made. The machine basically, just by reading the neural data, guessed what people were seeing, which looks quite a lot like mind reading. Mm-hmm. Another interesting experiment, this one made by Meta in 2022, exposed people to audiobooks in different languages. They recorded the signals from the brain using a functional magnetic resonance, and then feed this data to an artificial intelligence model. The idea was that the model learned to guess what kind of what words a person was listening to just by looking to the brain data. So the rate of success in this is quite astonishing. Over 70% of the words that someone was listening to were correctly guessed by the machine just using this kind of data. A lot like mind reading. In 2025, Meta again released a new model that's called Brain to QWERTY. The idea of this model is to replace keyboards by using just the data from your brain, and the effectiveness of the system is quite high, over an 80% of effectiveness. That's almost as many mistakes you make in typing. Okay, but these are the non-invasive techniques. There are other techniques that are invasive. This means putting the electrodes not in the skull, but connecting them directly to the brain. The first attempts to do this were made in the 1970s. In the 2004, the Utah array was born, but it's kind of a standard chip that you insert in the motor cortical area of the brain in order to trace movements. This was designed especially for people with, for example, ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, which is a condition quite awful when you basically become immobilized and you cannot communicate with the outside world. And very recently, Neuralink, this company that belongs to Elon Musk, very well known, developed a new kind of chip. The Neuralink chip is small as a coin, as maybe a 20-cent coin, 20-cent euro coin. This chip has 2,400 ultra-fine electrodes. It's inserted in the motor cortical area of the brain, and the idea is that this chip captures the signals from the brain and then transmitted them via Bluetooth to a computer, to an app, basically, that it's pre-trained with your data. This was experimented with first with pigs, then with monkeys. There are some famous images of monkeys playing video games just with their minds. And this has been tested in human beings since last year, since 2024. The first person was a certain Nolan Elberg from the United States that had paralysis, important paralysis in all his body, and now is able to surf the web, play video games, write emails, everything just using his mind. It's quite astonishing. There are other approaches like the synchron approach, BlackRock technology approach. We don't have time to enter into each of them, but the result is basically the same. Is that the possibility of connecting brains and computers is now a fact. So this has a lot of uncertainties, and the problem of the privacy of the data, of the brain data, it's immense. Because although every human brain is quite similar, every brain is unique. The morphology of each human brain is distinct as your digital, your fingertip prints. Also, the brain modifies itself at every time, creating new synapses, abolishing old new synapses. So every brain is unique, and the data, the individual data of every brain is extremely important to make this technology work. What's the problem? The problem is that you can infer quite a lot of things about a human being just by using your brain data. Something like, for example, inferring political tendencies, opinions, sexual tendencies. What are your interests? What frightens you? All this is absolutely easy and almost inconsequentially simple to get from brain data. So this raises quite a lot of eyebrows on the matter. Another point interesting is that you could, some of these technologies, for example, the Neuralink technology, allows you not only to read what the brain does, but also to write. There's also a problem of exploitation by knowledge. If a company knows what your neurological reactions are to different stimuli, it's very easy to present you that same stimuli in order to manipulate you. So, as you can see, this has a lot of privacy and even liberty issues associated. Considering this, first in 2017, the Morningside group from Columbia University, led by Rafael Yuste, a Spanish neurologist, developed a program concerning neural rights, concerning privacy, consensus, legal capacity, identity, the problem of neurological improvements, and non-discrimination. This led to the development of the concept of neural rights. The concept comes from ethics, basically, and is a very recent development. Anyway, there's an increasing corpus of international declarations on the matter. The OECD has at least one declaration on the matter on the need to regulate neural rights. The Council of Europe has also one. The United Nations has 2 declarations on the matter. UNESCO has even developed a kind of standard of neural rights. UNICEF also is working on the matter. I've been a consultant to UNICEF on the matter for neural rights for children. The Organization of American States has 2 declarations on the matter. So in this increasing corpus of international declarations, some bills have appeared. One of the most significant ones is the bill of the state of Colorado giving protection to neural data independently from the way it was obtained. Maybe it was obtained in a commercial setting, maybe it was obtained in a medical setting, maybe in a consumer setting. It's all highly private data. The same bill was again put forward in California and approved quite recently. There are law projects in Brazil, Mexico, Argentina. There's an interesting declaration in Spain, the Carta de Derechos Digitales, that covers quite detailedly all these matters. And well, the first law on the matter, the first statute on the matter, was the reform of the Chilean constitution in 2021 that incorporated neural rights into our constitution. I was a part of this process, so well, I know it quite well. What we incorporated was a protection for neural data, independently of the context it was obtained in. A special protection that's the highest kind of protection we can get. And then a right to cognitive liberty. This is not the same as, I don't know, freedom of consciousness. Freedom of consciousness protects your rights to believe whatever you want, your right to profess a religion, your right to express your opinions. This is even more basic than this. It's the right to freely form a conscience and develop a subjective point of view. It's kind of the prerequisite of any opinion. Well, I think I'm in my time, so well, thank you very much for your attention, for this very kind invitation. I'm deeply grateful, and I hope you had fun with it.
Thank you so much, Carlos. Actually, to be honest, I'm absolutely convinced to insist on preserving my neural rights and my neural data. During your lecture, there was a scientific fiction movie that came into my mind. It was played by Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I really don't know the title of the movie because it is a long, long time ago that I saw it. But yeah, yep, Total Recall. Thank you. I think it's not a fiction anymore. But thank you so much. We have to come back to this issue later on this series as well, because this is something that is not too much far future anymore. Still, right now we have a little room for questions and answers. We have two extremely important and vivid sessions. We had really good and really informative contributions. I really thank you for all of you who presented here today, even the first section or this second panel. If there's anyone who would like to ask or to comment, we had a new technology here, which is really brand new. I really need to learn it how to use it. But the floor is yours. So questions and answers.
Kérdezhetek magyarul? Igen? És nem tudom, nem csak a mostani előadóktól lehet kérdezni, ugye? Vagy
bárkitől.
Jó.
Aki itt van.
Akkor, hogyha megengedi dr. Tóth Andrea Katalin, szeretném azt kérdezni, hogy említette, hogy az EU gondolkodik, vagy tervez bizonyos egyszerűsítéseket végezni ebben a, hát most már egyre terebélyesedő adatszabályozásban. Talán tudja azt, hogy mi Magyarországon megpróbáltuk ezt meglépni. Ez a NAK TV-nek nevezett törvény, amelyik hát összetolt többféle, tehát egyrészt a korábbi közadattörvényt, ami a nyílt adatirányelvnek az átültetése volt, másrészt a DGA rendeletnek a végrehajtásához szükséges intézkedéseket, stb. És hát mi tapasztaltuk ennek a Mission Impossible vállalkozás jellegét, és akkor most a konkrét, tehát elsősorban a terminológiai problémák miatt. Tehát kezdve azon, hogy a GDPR data adatokról beszél, hát a PSI irányelv, illetve a nyílt adat irányelv, tehát dokumentumokról beszél, de information-t is használ, és aztán jött a DGA, amelyik az adatot csak elektronikusan értelmezi, szemben a GDPR-ral, amelyik ugye nem csak elektronikusan. Tehát itt egy olyan terminológiai katyvasz alakult ki, hogy hát Magyarország meglépte, de hogyha itt nagyon megpiszkáljuk, akkor hát meglehetősen beletört a bicskája, tehát hogy szóval eléggé kétséges az eredmény. Nem tudom, hogy mi erről a véleménye.
Köszönöm szépen nagyon a kérdést és a kommentet is, és valóban egyet kell, hogy értsek, és szerintem ez egy nagyon jó példa lesz majd a további munkánk során az egyszerűsítés kapcsán, és fel tudom hozni majd, hogy Magyarországon milyen fejlemények vannak ezzel kapcsolatban, hogy mi sikerült, illetve mi nem sikerült. Az egyetértésem az teljes mértékben vonatkozik arra, hogy keveredés van a terminológiát illetően. És ennek kapcsán már igazából ránéztünk a különböző jogszabályokra, hogy ezt hogyan lehetne legalább koncepcionálisan összeegyeztetni egymással, és igazából eddig meg is ragadtunk a belső munkában ezen a szinten. Pontosan emiatt, mert a különböző jogszabályokban ugyanazok a szavak különböző koncepciókat magyaráznak, illetve jelentenek, ami nem feltétlenül probléma, ugyanis ezek a kifejezések folyamatosan változnak és folyamatosan fejlődnek, és szerintem ez a fejlődés az, ami nyomon is követhető egyrészt a nyílt adatirányelv, ami még dokumentumokkal foglalkozik, utána a GDPR, ami adat, mind offline, illetve online, és eljutunk végül a teljesen elektronikus adatokról szóló különböző jogszabályokhoz. Ezt egy kalap alá venni, illetve egy kódexbe összehozni valóban kihívás lesz, hogy így mondjuk, és egyenlőre még tényleg, még hogyha tudnám, nem mondhatnám el, de nem is tudom, hogy pontosan milyen formában fog megvalósulni ez az egyszerűsítés, azon kívül, hogy ezeknek a jogszabályoknak a felülvizsgálatát mindenképpen meg kell csinálnunk. Nagyon köszönöm szépen a kommentet arról, hogy Magyarországon ez hogy történt, és ez szerintem fontos információ lesz részünkre.
Köszönöm szépen. További kérdés.
Köszönöm szépen. Azt nem tudom, hogy Carlos Amunategui fordítást kap-e, vagy magyarból?
In English, hogyha hozzáteszem, akkor in English.
De nem neki teszem fel a kérdést, mert akkor így nem bonyolódok be ebbe. Babos Gábornak szeretném föltenni ezt a kérdést, hogy amit az előadása végén kivetített ilyen lineárisan emelkedő diagram, az egy saját tapasztalati termék, vagy ez a Nemzetközi Adatmenedzsment Szövetség módszertanával összefüggésben alkotott ábra, mert ez egy nagyon sűrű metaforája volt annak, amit adatmenedzsmentnek gondolok, és csak ennyi lett volna a kérdés, hogy teljesen tapasztalati úton készült, vagy ennek van valamilyen módszertani alapja?
Köszönöm a kérdést. Ez az ábra, ez tapasztalati úton készült, viszont van egy érettségi felmérés minta, amit egyébként a Data Management Association használ. Ez egy 7 fázisú modell, hogy milyen érettségi fázisokon megy végig egy szervezet, ahogy hát a 0. pontról, hogy eljut egy magas érettségi szintig, és azzal egyébként összhangban van, ennél részletesebb ez a bontás, amit én hoztam, de azt egyébként ajánlom is megnézni, mert ez egy nagyon érdekes, vannak benne ilyen háborús, meg nyugalmi szakaszok, amikor a szervezetnek változtatnia kell, meg amikor stabilizálja ezt a változást, tehát így bomlik föl.
I have a question to two lecturers, to Zoltán and to Carlos as well. That Zoltán mentioned in his intervention that we can state that there is an inequality gap between the global south and the global north concerning data governance and artificial intelligence. And we may say that, that all major stakeholders of data governance and artificial intelligence, I mean the United States, China, the European Union, all belong to the global north. And how do you see the future? How international organizations may work out to fill that gap and not to let it widen? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Judge. Yeah,
you can sit down.
I can sit down. Okay, thank you. Thank you. There are many international organizations at the moment, also in Geneva, but also elsewhere, which are working to strengthen the capacity of countries in less developed parts of the world. And there's a huge need coming from these countries also. So I could mention ITU, for example, they have amazing training programs, online also and in person. VIPO just had I think today and tomorrow we have the second day of a training on IP and AI, which is also open to countries from less developed parts of the world. There are also many initiatives coming from these countries, small companies, think tanks, civil society organizations who are interested in the topic, and they also attend more and more events in the UN, and I assume also beyond the UN also, which is I think is very important, and I see it as a chance to develop further and because I think with ICT and with data governance and AI they see it's not always extremely expensive, but if you earn the skills, then you can perhaps jump make a huge jump, and there are many strategies, national strategies, which are also developed in these countries. So I think that's the key, that they have the chance to sit around the same table. They also obtain the skills which are needed to benefit from these programs, and then we will see. But I think the huge problem is that most of these big companies are in the US, and some other countries. China also has initiatives, through which they help developing countries, but it might come with certain strings. So, yeah, we will see. But I think there's a huge interest in Geneva. Almost on a daily basis, there are events on AI, and I think also on data governance, and there will be also more and more events in the coming years. So it's a new trend, and we will see what happens at the end. Thanks.
Thank you. We still have room for the last question or comment. I see that that point comes that we all of us are waiting for or looking forward to very much. We invite all of you who are here for a small reception, and in this point I turn into Hungarian. Sorry, Carlos. And all of you who have a translation, I need to turn it to Hungarian. Szóval mindenkit a legnagyobb szeretettel várunk. Itt kint a folyosón egy szerény fogadást szeretnénk tartani, ami tényleg egy kapcsolatépítés. Találkozzunk egymással, egy kis időt szálljunk egy kötetlen beszélgetésre. Ez igazából egy célja is ennek a rendezvénynek, hogy minél inkább tudjunk közvetlen kapcsolatokat is létesíteni. És egy technikai kérdés, azt már Sánta György kollégám említette, hogy az étkezést, italfogyasztást azt kint tudjuk a folyosón végezni. Ide a terembe ételt, italt ne hozzunk, viszont hogyha szeretnének leülni, beszélgetni, vagy egy kis personal room, erre nincsen most magyar szó a fejemben, akkor ide természetesen be lehet jönni a terembe. Jó, úgyhogy mindenkit a legnagyobb szeretettel várunk egy kis fogadásra, tartsanak velünk. És holnap természetesen mindenkit 9 órakor szeretettel várunk. 9 órakor már kezdünk, úgyhogy 8:45-kor egy kávéval, egy finom kávéval várunk mindenkit itt holnap reggel. Köszönjük szépen! Thank you, Carlos. It was good to see you.